Hello, everyone. It's good to be back. I'm in a different location. This is Lake George, just behind me, and attending a conference. One of the things that I want to talk about today is this kind of resurgence of terrorist plots. Um, when we have the Easter bombings, when we have the synagogue bombing, shooting, we also have a terrorist attack that was prevented in Los Angeles. And so this kind of terrorism plots coming back on the horizon, this idea of using violence against people because of who they are seems to be escalating. New Zealand as well, at a mosque, and of course at the synagogue near San Diego. And this is very troubling, should be troubling for everyone because this is on top of the kind of rhetoric that's going on in the country, just as we're discussing important issues like immigration, whether we're talking about the conduct of the President of the United States, when we're talking about the fact that as Americans we are so divided and that the world is so divided. And it's really a sad tale. It's a sad tale for our nation. It's a reminder that I think that we need to stop. We need to listen to the voices in our heads that tell us maybe we should think about this for a while. Maybe we should consider the fact that maybe I don't have all the answers. Maybe someone else has a better point of view. Um, when we rely on just rhetoric and then point fingers and say things that we shouldn't say, this is the kind of reflection that we kind of need. In a nice quiet place like Lake George happens to be a pretty good place to do so. But even here at this conference, I get reminders of as a public official, I'm not an elected official, I'm a public official, that there are antagonistic individuals in the work that we do that have use strong language, particularly on social media, that is totally inappropriate. And we talk about social media for a moment. We look at the rise of Facebook, we look at the rise of Twitter, and we realize how many people are speaking on these platforms and using language that they would never say to their own parents. And they're saying this in a way that is both personal and outrageous to other people. They may be saying it broadly, they may be saying it specifically to individuals. Regardless, I don't use Twitter all that often, and I don't use Facebook either. I do have accounts, but um, one can say that these are really become a cesspool of our discourse. And it's not really whether or not we should say no to these platforms or that we should censor them. The problem is that this kind of conduct is that we are allowing ourselves. Um, we are teaching our children to be outraged by everything that is where we may feel some sort of opposition to, without really knowing all the facts. We don't listen as a society anymore. Uh, we don't listen to each other in our personal relationships anymore. These days are really are dark days in our history. The information age, social media was supposed to make us more connected, give us another way of communicating to each other, was instead drawn us further apart because we don't have that one-on-one conversation. And I can say even personally, um, if I'm trying to persuade somebody, it's impossible to do it by text or by email. I don't post anything personal on Facebook or Twitter for that very reason. I don't want anyone knowing. But we do this. We miss the personal contact that we can talk about issues. Um, but we don't do that anymore. Um, we've come to the point where we don't want to listen. We don't want to consider what the other person has to say, not just what I have to say, but what the other person has to say. Our communication breakdowns have just been enormous, and because we constantly live in a society and a world that is driven by emotions, and some of those emotions are despair. We have these shooters coming up. We have ISIS rising. We have all of this animosity that just seems to flourish in this world of ours. A world that is still relatively peaceful, but it has some of the hallmarks that we seen prior to World War One, where there was relative peace, but yet war and anger was on everyone's mind. Revenge, resentment was on everyone's mind. It's not the same now as it was prior to World War One or Two, but some of the signatures are there. We're not talking. We distrust each other. We can say something, and the feedback we get is that, oh, you're a racist, or you completely flip the meaning of what you were going to say, or what you actually said. I mean, this is so convoluted, it's ridiculous. And so, on top of all this, we have these terrorist incidents. Al Baghdadi is a supposedly the leader of ISIS, who seems to be alive and well. A recent video came up of him. Um, so ISIS is pretty much destroyed, or at least 99% destroyed. Not completely destroyed. You never completely destroy groups like that. Um, but their revival is certainly troubling. Um, when we look at terrorism and then looking at our discourse, it is a double sword against our society, our civilization. So I reflect and I can look at the lake and the mountains, the serenity, how quiet it is, how beautiful it is, even on a kind of chilly day like today. Do we take a moment, even just for a short moment, get away from our goddamn phones and think about how we're treating our other people who affect us? Because I can't affect uh, these shooters. I mean, I don't get in contact with them. None of us do. Very few of us do. How are we in our relationship with the people around us that we in contact every day? Do we listen to what they're saying? Are we prejudging what's in their hearts? Do we ask ourselves, how can we make this relationship a little bit better, not worse? Are we deaf to the people around us? I would have to say a lot of us are guilty of this, and myself included. Um, you learn a lot over the years, and one of the things that is so important is to be a little more self-critical of what you're doing and think about how the other person may feel about your actions, particularly if those reactions are not positive. If they're negative, you have to ask why. And there may be reasons why, for reasons we don't understand. And so prejudging someone's reaction to you um, is wrong. It's inappropriate. And it's just like when other people misjudge your own actions and what you say, it's inappropriate. But we can't. Why can't we talk about these things? Why can't we talk to our neighbors? Why are we so distrustful of one another? Why do we constantly live in this kind of fear that we're totally under threat? That life isn't unfair, but it's more fair than we can possibly imagine any other time in human history. This is what we need to look at. This is what we need to change. So reflect for a while. Enjoy the view.